Hey, my name is Nate, and I've been married to Bianca for 7 years. We have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter named Ellie. I always thought our relationship was solid, but recently, things have taken a turn that I never saw coming. Bianca and I met through mutual friends at a 4th of July barbecue. She was the life of the party, always the one cracking jokes and making everyone feel at ease. I was instantly drawn to her energy and charisma. We dated for a couple of years before tying the knot. Our wedding was like a scene out of a fairy tale, everything I could have ever wanted. Fast forward to now, and it feels like I'm living a nightmare. It all started a few months ago when Bianca started acting a bit off. She'd become more distant, spending a lot of time on her phone, often texting late into the night. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd just shrug it off, saying it was her friend Vanessa. I didn't think much of it at first. Vanessa had always been her confidant, and they'd often chat about their lives, kids, and everything in between. But then, Bianca's behavior grew even more suspicious. She started going to the gym a lot more frequently than she used to. At first, I was happy for her. It's important to stay fit and healthy. But then I noticed she'd come home later and later, often with some excuse about how she stayed for an extra yoga class or grabbed a smoothie with a gym buddy. I wanted to believe her, but something just didn't sit right with me. One evening while she was in the shower, I decided to check her phone. I know it wasn't the right thing to do, but my gut was screaming at me that something was wrong. Of course, her phone was locked, and she had changed her passcode. Bianca had never done that before. My heart sank, and I knew I needed to dig deeper. I started paying more attention to her actions, noting down when she'd leave and come back, and trying to catch glimpses of her phone when she wasn't looking. I even considered hiring a private investigator, but that felt too extreme at the time. I didn't want to believe that my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, could be betraying me like this. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Saturday, and Bianca said she was going to a new yoga studio across town with Vanessa. Ellie was at a sleepover, so I had the house to myself. As I was cleaning up, I found a crumpled receipt in the trash can. It was from a fancy restaurant on the other side of town, dated from the previous night. Bianca had told me she was working late and then went straight to bed. I felt a cold rush of realization and fear. I called Vanessa, needing to know the truth. When she answered, I could hear the confusion in her voice. "Hey Nate, what's up?" "Hey Vanessa, just a quick question. Did you and Bianca go to that new yoga studio today?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a pause. No, I haven't seen Bianca in a few weeks. Why?" My heart dropped. "No reason, just checking something, thanks." I hung up and stared at the wall, feeling like my world was crumbling around me. I needed to know who she was with and what was really going on. This was the beginning of the end, and I had no idea just how deep the betrayal ran. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Here's what happened next. After discovering the receipt and realizing that Bianca had been lying about her whereabouts, I knew I had to find out more. I couldn't just confront her without solid proof. So I decided to take a more proactive approach. The next Saturday, I told Bianca that I had to work, but instead I stayed home and waited for her to leave for her yoga session. As soon as she left, I followed her, staying a safe distance behind so she wouldn't notice me. She drove across town, not to a yoga studio, but to a nice hotel. I parked my car a few blocks away and watched as she met up with a man in the lobby. They embraced and kissed passionately. My heart shattered into a million pieces. The man was someone I recognized. Colton, the new trainer at her gym. He was always overly friendly whenever I saw him, but I never thought anything of it. Now I could see the truth. They checked into a room together, and I felt a mix of rage and despair. I snapped a few photos with my phone as proof. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I went back to my car and drove home, trying to process what I had just witnessed. My mind was racing with a million questions. How long had this been going on? What did I do to deserve this? How could she do this to our family? When Bianca came home that evening, I pretended everything was normal. She acted like nothing was wrong, which only made me angrier. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I needed to be calm and collected. The next day, I called my best friend Derek and told him everything. Derek and I have been friends since college, and I knew I could trust him. He was shocked and immediately offered his support. Nate, man, you can't let her get away with this. You need to confront her and get the truth out of her, Derek said. I know, but I don't know how to do it without losing my temper. I don't want Ellie to see us fighting, I replied. Maybe wait until she's asleep, then talk to Bianca. You deserve to know the truth, Derek suggested. I decided to take Derek's advice. That night, after we put Ellie to bed, I sat Bianca down in the living room. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Bianca, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me with a puzzled expression. Sure, what's up? I know about you and Colton, I said, cutting straight to the point. Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. I followed you yesterday and saw you two at the hotel, I continued. How long has this been going on? Bianca's expression changed from shock to anger. How dare you follow me? You had no right to invade my privacy. Privacy? You're my wife. We've been married for 7 years, and you think you can just cheat on me and expect me to respect your privacy? I shouted, unable to hold back my anger any longer. Fine, you want to know? It's been going on for 6 months, she spat. But can you blame me? You've been so distant and preoccupied with work. I needed someone who made me feel wanted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're blaming me for your affair? This isn't about my work. It's about your lies and betrayal. We argued for what felt like hours. Bianca tried to justify her actions, saying she felt neglected and unloved. I couldn't believe the audacity she had to turn this around on me. Eventually, she stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room, seething with anger and frustration. I knew this was far from over. The confrontation had only just begun, and I needed to figure out what to do next. After the heated argument, I spent the night on the couch, unable to sleep. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion. I kept replaying the conversation with Bianca over and over in my head. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time, I needed to be calm and collected. I needed answers. The next morning, Bianca acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast for Ellie and herself, completely ignoring me. I could see the tension in her eyes, but she refused to acknowledge it. After Ellie left for school, I decided it was time for another conversation. Bianca, we need to talk again, I said, my voice firm but calm. She sighed, putting down the coffee cup she was holding. What now, Nate? I thought we said everything last night. No, you did most of the talking. I need to understand why you did this. I need to know the truth, I replied. She sat down at the kitchen table, her eyes avoiding mine. I told you, I felt neglected. You were always working late, never had time for me or for us. I felt like I was just an accessory in your life. That's not true, and you know it. I've always tried to balance work and family. If you felt neglected, why didn't you talk to me about it? Why turn to someone else? I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I tried, Nate. But every time I brought it up, you brushed it off, saying you were busy or tired. Colton was there for me. He listened to me, made me feel appreciated, she said, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. So instead of working on our marriage, you decided to cheat? How long did you think you could keep this up? Bianca finally looked me in the eyes. I don't know. I didn't plan any of this. It just happened. One thing led to another, and I couldn't stop it. I could feel my anger rising again. You couldn't stop it. You didn't want to stop it. You chose to betray me and our family for your own selfish needs. She looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry, Nate. I never wanted to hurt you. I shook my head. Sorry doesn't fix this, Bianca. You broke my trust, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air. I needed time to think, to process everything. I couldn't make any rash decisions right now. I need some time, I finally said. I need to figure out what to do next. For now, I think it's best if we stay away from each other as much as possible. I'll sleep in the guest room. Bianca nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. That day, I called Derek again and told him about the conversation. He was furious on my behalf and insisted that I come over to his place for a while to clear my head. I took him up on his offer and spent the evening there, talking things through and trying to make sense of it all. The next few days were tense and awkward. Bianca and I barely spoke, only communicating when necessary. Ellie noticed the change and kept asking if everything was okay. We tried our best to reassure her, but it was clear she sensed something was wrong. I decided to contact a lawyer to discuss my options. I didn't know if I wanted a divorce yet, but I needed to be prepared. The lawyer, a kind woman named Lorraine, listened to my story and gave me some valuable advice. Nate, it's important to think about what's best for you and Ellie. If you decide to pursue a divorce, we can discuss custody arrangements and the division of assets. But for now, take some time to process everything and make the decision that's right for you, Lorraine said. I thanked her and left her office with a lot to think about. The days turned into weeks, and I still hadn't made a decision. Bianca continued to apologize and tried to make amends, but the damage was done. Trust was broken, and I didn't know if it could ever be restored. The days turned into weeks, and I felt like I was living in a fog. The initial shock and anger had faded, but in their place was a deep, gnawing sadness. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved and trusted had betrayed me so completely. It felt like my whole world had crumbled around me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. Bianca and I continued to live in the same house, but it was like we were strangers. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was only about practical matters. Ellie sensed the tension and became more withdrawn. I hated seeing the impact our issues were having on her, but I didn't know how to fix it. One night, after Ellie was asleep, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, staring at our wedding photo. We looked so happy and in love back then. I couldn't understand how we had gotten to this point. I felt a wave of despair wash over me, and I buried my face in my hands, letting the tears flow freely. I realized I couldn't go through this alone. I needed help to process my emotions and figure out what to do next. The next day, I called a therapist, Dr. Lisa Carter, and scheduled an appointment. Talking to a professional felt like the right step to take. At my first session, I poured out my heart to Dr. Carter. I told her about the affair, the confrontation, and the overwhelming sadness I felt. Nate, it's perfectly normal to feel this way. Betrayal cuts deep, and it's going to take time to heal, Dr. Carter said gently. But you don't have to go through this alone. We'll work through your feelings together and find a way forward. Over the next few weeks, I attended therapy regularly. Dr. Carter helped me understand my emotions and gave me tools to cope with the pain. She encouraged me to focus on self-care and to lean on my support system. I also started reaching out to friends and family. Derek continued to be a rock for me, always ready to listen and offer advice. My sister, Amanda, was also incredibly supportive. She came over often to help with Ellie and to keep me company. Having people around who cared about me made a world of difference. Despite the support, there were still days when I felt overwhelmed by sadness. I missed the life I thought I had, the future I had envisioned with Bianca. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in the past. I had to find a way to move forward, for my sake and for Ellie's. One day, while at the park with Ellie, I had a moment of clarity. She was playing on the swings, her laughter filling the air. Watching her, I realized that I needed to be strong for her. She deserved a happy and stable home, and I was determined to provide that for her, no matter what happened with Bianca. When we got home, I sat Bianca down for another conversation. This time, it was different. I wasn't angry or accusatory. I was calm and determined. Bianca, I've been thinking a lot about our situation, I began. I can't keep living like this. It's not good for me, it's not good for you, and it's definitely not good for Ellie. We need to figure out what we're going to do moving forward. Bianca looked at me with an irritated expression, rolling her eyes. Oh great, another one of your serious talks. What is it this time, Nate? I know things have been rough, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But we can't keep living like this. It's tearing us apart, and it's not fair to Ellie. I think we should consider a separation, she scoffed. A separation? Seriously? You're just going to give up like that? I'm not giving up, Bianca. I'm trying to find a way to fix this. We need space to think and heal. You've been lying and cheating, and it's destroyed our trust, I said, my frustration bubbling to the surface. Maybe if you hadn't been such a boring workaholic husband, I wouldn't have needed to find someone else to make me feel alive, she snapped back, her eyes blazing with anger. I felt a surge of anger, but forced myself to stay calm. This isn't about blaming each other. This is about doing what's best for us and for Ellie. I think it's best if you stay with your parents for a while. Fine, if that's what you want, she said coldly. I'll pack my things tonight. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air. I knew this was the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. That evening, I explained the situation to Ellie in the simplest terms. I told her that Mommy would be staying with Grandma and Grandpa for a little while, but that we both loved her very much. She seemed to understand, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. After Bianca's outburst and our decision to try a trial separation, things got tense around the house. Neither of us wanted to leave our home, so we ended up living under the same roof, but in separate rooms. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but it felt like the best solution for Ellie. Bianca was acting like she didn't have a care in the world, continuing her daily routines as if nothing had happened. It was infuriating to watch her go about her life so nonchalantly while I was struggling to keep it together. I decided to focus on what I could control, myself and Ellie. I continued going to therapy, and Dr. Carter helped me sort through my feelings. She encouraged me to focus on myself and Ellie, and to think about what I wanted for my future. It was hard, but slowly, I began to see a path forward. Bianca and I communicated only when necessary, mainly about Ellie. The tension was thick, and I could see Ellie starting to pick up on it. She became more withdrawn, which broke my heart. I hated seeing the impact our issues were having on her. One night, I decided to have another conversation with Bianca. This time, I needed to lay out my thoughts and see where she stood. Bianca, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She rolled her eyes and sighed. What now, Nate? Can't we just live our lives without these constant talks? No, we can't. This isn't sustainable, and it's affecting Ellie. We need to figure out a real solution, I said firmly. She crossed her arms and glared at me. Fine. What do you suggest? I've been thinking a lot, and I think we should consider a more formal separation. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. We need to start the process of figuring out what our future looks like, whether that's together or apart, I explained. She scoffed. Oh, so now you want a separation? You're just running away because you can't handle it. I'm not running away, Bianca. I'm trying to be realistic. We need space to heal and figure out what we want. Maybe in the future, we can see if there's anything left to salvage. But right now, we need to focus on ourselves and Ellie, I said, trying to stay calm. Whatever, Nate. Do what you want. But don't expect me to just roll over and let you dictate everything, she snapped back. The next few days were tense and awkward. We tried our best to avoid each other, but living in the same house made that nearly impossible. I knew this situation wasn't sustainable, but I didn't know how to fix it. One day, out of the blue, Bianca called and said she wanted to talk. I was hesitant but agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a table looking anxious. Nate, thanks for meeting me, she said, not making eye contact. Sure, what's up? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. I've been thinking a lot about us and what happened, she began. I know I've hurt you, and I'm really sorry for that, but I need to know what you want to do. Do you think there's any chance we can work things out? I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Bianca, I appreciate your apology, but what you did broke my trust. I don't know if I can ever get that back. I've been trying to figure out what's best for Ellie and me. Right now, I think we need to focus on being good co-parents and giving each other space. Her expression turned cold. So, that's it? You're just giving up on us? I'm not giving up. I'm trying to be realistic. We both need time to heal. Maybe in the future we can see if there's anything left to salvage, but right now, I need to focus on myself and Ellie, I explained. She scoffed. Typical. Always the martyr. Fine. If that's what you want, I'll give you your precious space. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I'm sorry it has to be this way, Bianca. I really am. We left the cafe without saying another word. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a clear direction. The next few weeks were tough, but I kept pushing forward. I focused on my work, my therapy, and most importantly, Ellie. She seemed to be adjusting well, and I did everything I could to make sure she felt loved and supported. One evening, Derek invited me out for a drink. It had been a while since I'd gone out, and I figured it would be a good distraction. We met at our favorite bar, and after a few beers, Derek brought up the topic of revenge. Nate, have you thought about getting back at Bianca? I mean, she deserves it for what she did to you, Derek said, a mischievous glint in his eye. I shook my head. I don't know, man. Part of me wants to, but I don't think it would help. I just want to move on. I get that, but sometimes a little payback can be satisfying, Derek insisted. You don't have to do anything crazy, but maybe just let her know she can't walk all over you. I thought about it for a moment. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe a small taste of her own medicine would help me feel better. I decided to give it some more thought, but for now, I just wanted to focus on healing. As the days passed, I continued to work on myself and my relationship with Ellie. We spent more time together, and I made sure to be there for her whenever she needed me. I could see her starting to come out of her shell, and it gave me hope that we could get through this. After my conversation with Derek, I couldn't shake the idea of getting some sort of payback on Bianca. It wasn't like me to think that way, but the betrayal had left me feeling so powerless and angry. I decided to start small, just to see how it felt. The first thing I did was to start being a little more secretive myself. I changed the password on my phone and computer, which immediately got Bianca's attention. "What's with the new passwords, Nate? Got something to hide?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "No, just taking a page out of your book. Gotta protect my privacy, right?" I shot back, enjoying the flicker of irritation that crossed her face. I also started dressing a bit sharper and going out more, even if it was just to run errands or grab a coffee. I knew it made Bianca wonder what I was up to, and that gave me a small sense of satisfaction. I could see the curiosity and slight jealousy in her eyes whenever I left the house. One evening, I decided to take it up a notch. I asked a friend from work, Clara, to join me for a drink. Clara knew about my situation and was happy to help. We went to a bar where I knew Bianca's friends often hung out, hoping word would get back to her. We laughed, took some selfies, and had a genuinely good time. Clara posted a few of the photos on social media, tagging me in them. I knew it wouldn't take long for Bianca to see them. Sure enough, the next day she confronted me. "Nate, who's this Clara woman? Are you seeing someone else already?" she demanded, her voice laced with accusation. "She's just a friend from work. We went out for a drink, that's all," I replied nonchalantly, enjoying the look of annoyance on her face. "Just a friend? You seem awfully cozy in those pictures," she snapped. "I don't owe you any explanations, Bianca. We're separated, remember? I can do what I want," I said, walking away before she could respond. The petty revenge tactics gave me a small sense of control, but I knew I needed to focus on the bigger picture, my future and Ellie's well-being. I decided it was time to take a more significant step. One day, I was going through some old paperwork when I came across Bianca's financial records. I noticed she had been spending a lot of money on her gym and personal expenses, way more than she should have been. I decided to have a little chat with her gym's management. I visited the gym and asked to speak with the manager, a stern woman named Lisa. I explained the situation to her, showing her the financial records and expressing my concern that Bianca might be misusing our joint funds. Lisa was sympathetic and assured me she would look into it. A few days later, she called me back with some interesting information. Apparently, Colton, the trainer Bianca had been seeing, had a history of inappropriate relationships with clients. Armed with this information, I decided to take things further. I contacted a lawyer and explained the situation. We discussed the possibility of filing a complaint against Colton in the gym, not only for his behavior, but also for the emotional distress it had caused me and Ellie. The lawyer agreed that we had a strong case and suggested we proceed. I felt a mix of satisfaction and apprehension. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about standing up for myself and making sure Bianca faced some consequences for her actions. I also started to focus more on my career. I took on a challenging project at work, pouring my energy into something positive. It felt good to accomplish something and to be recognized for my efforts. My boss even hinted at a possible promotion, which was a huge morale boost. In the midst of dealing with the present chaos, I found myself frequently drifting into memories of happier times. The flashbacks would hit me unexpectedly, sometimes triggered by a familiar song, a scent, or a simple moment with Ellie. These memories were bittersweet, reminding me of what once was and what had been lost. I remember the day Bianca and I first met. It was at a 4th of July barbecue hosted by a mutual friend. She was the life of the party, effortlessly charming everyone around her with her quick wit and infectious laughter. I was immediately drawn to her energy and confidence. We spent the entire evening talking and laughing, and by the end of the night, I knew there was something special about her. Our first date was magical. We went to a small, cozy Italian restaurant downtown. Bianca was radiant, her eyes sparkling with excitement. We talked for hours about everything, our dreams, our families, our favorite movies and books. I was captivated by her passion for life and her adventurous spirit. We ended the night with a walk along the river, holding hands and stealing kisses under the stars. It felt like a scene out of a romantic movie, and I was hopelessly in love. As I reminisced, I realized how much effort we had put into building our life together. We had shared so many milestones, moving into our first apartment, getting married, buying our house, and of course, the birth of our daughter, Ellie. Each of these moments was filled with joy and love, and it was hard to reconcile those memories with the reality of our current situation. One particularly vivid memory was our honeymoon in Hawaii. We had saved up for months to afford the trip, and it was worth every penny. We spent our days lounging on the beach, exploring lush rainforests, and snorkeling in crystal-clear waters. Bianca was in her element, her adventurous spirit shining brightly. We laughed and played like carefree kids, enjoying every moment of our time together. It was one of the happiest times of my life, and I had truly believed that our love was unbreakable. Another memory that stood out was the day we brought Ellie home from the hospital. Bianca and I were both nervous and excited, unsure of what to expect as new parents. But from the moment we laid eyes on our baby girl, we were completely smitten. We spent countless nights taking turns rocking her to sleep, marveling at the tiny miracle we had created. Watching Bianca with Ellie, I had never felt more in love or more certain that we were meant to be a family. As the memories washed over me, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. The woman I had fallen in love with seemed like a distant stranger now, replaced by someone I barely recognized. It was painful to think about how far we had drifted apart and how much had changed. But amidst the sadness, there was also a glimmer of hope. These flashbacks reminded me of the love and happiness we had once shared. They served as a reminder that despite the current turmoil, there had been good times too. And while I wasn't sure if we could ever get back to that place, I knew that those memories would always be a part of me. As I continued to navigate the complexities of our separation, I tried to hold on to the positive aspects of our past. I wanted to remember the good times, not just the pain and betrayal. It helped me stay grounded and reminded me that at one point, we had truly loved each other. Amidst the chaos of my personal life, work became both a refuge and a challenge. My job had always been demanding, but now it was also a place where I could momentarily escape the turmoil at home. However, balancing my responsibilities at work with the ongoing drama with Bianca was no easy feat. I work as a project manager at a tech company. The projects are fast-paced, and the deadlines are often tight. Before everything went south, I prided myself on my ability to handle stress and keep things on track. But the strain from my home life was starting to seep into my professional world. I started arriving late and leaving early, often distracted during meetings and missing important details. My performance was slipping, and it wasn't long before my boss, Karen, noticed. "Nate, can we have a word?" she asked one morning, her tone serious but not unkind. "Sure, Karen, what's up?" I replied, already knowing what was coming. "I've noticed you've been off your game lately. I know you've got a lot going on personally, but it's starting to affect your work. Is there anything we can do to support you?" she asked, genuinely concerned. I sighed, feeling the weight of it all. "I'm sorry, Karen, things at home have been rough. I'm doing my best, but it's been hard to keep everything together." She nodded. "I understand, and I appreciate your honesty. Maybe it would help to take a step back for a bit, focus on getting things sorted at home. We can redistribute some of your workload temporarily." At first, the idea of stepping back felt like admitting defeat, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized Karen was right. I needed to get my personal life in order before I could fully commit to my work again. We agreed on a plan where I would take a couple of weeks off, using some of my accumulated leave. My team would cover for me in the meantime, and I'd still be available for urgent issues. During those weeks, I focused on Ellie and myself. I spent more time with her, helping her with school projects, taking her to the park, and just being present. I also continued with therapy, trying to rebuild my emotional strength. The break from work was exactly what I needed. It gave me space to breathe and think without the constant pressure of deadlines and meetings. I used the time to reflect on my priorities and what I wanted for my future. When I returned to work, I felt more focused and determined. I was ready to take on my responsibilities with renewed energy. Karen and my colleagues were supportive, and I was grateful for their understanding and patience. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Bianca continued to be a disruptive force, often trying to undermine my efforts to create a stable environment for Ellie. Her constant negativity and attempts to provoke me were draining, but I was learning to manage my reactions better. One day, during a particularly stressful project, Bianca showed up at my office unannounced. She was furious about a scheduling conflict with Ellie's school event and demanded to speak with me immediately. "Nate, we need to talk. Now!" she hissed, causing heads to turn as she stormed into the office. "Bianca, this is not the time or place." "I'm working," I said, trying to stay calm. "I don't care. You think you can just dictate everything and leave me out of important decisions?" she yelled. I took a deep breath. "We'll discuss this later, at home. Please leave." She glared at me but eventually left, muttering under her breath. The encounter left me shaken, but I managed to keep my composure. After she left, Karen approached me. "Is everything okay?" "Just the usual drama," I said with a weak smile. "I'm sorry for the scene." "Don't worry about it. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself and Ellie. If you need any more time off, just let me know," she said, offering her support once again. The incident with Bianca made me more determined to maintain boundaries. I couldn't let her chaos spill into my professional life. I needed to protect my career and provide a stable future for Ellie. Reflecting on the entire journey, I've come to realize how much I've learned from this painful experience. The betrayal, the emotional turmoil, and the challenges I faced have all shaped me into a stronger person. I want to share some of the key lessons I've learned, in the hopes that they might help someone else going through a similar situation. First and foremost, I've learned the importance of self-care. It's easy to lose yourself in the midst of a crisis, but taking care of your physical and mental health is crucial. Therapy played a significant role in helping me process my emotions and rebuild my self-esteem. Finding healthy ways to cope with stress, such as exercising and spending time with loved ones, made a huge difference. Communication is another lesson I've taken to heart. If I could go back, I'd make sure Bianca and I had more open and honest conversations about our feelings and needs. It's essential to address issues early on, rather than letting them fester and grow into something unmanageable. I've also come to understand the value of setting boundaries. Learning to say no and protect my own well-being was difficult, but necessary. This applied not only to my relationship with Bianca, but also to my work and social life. Setting clear boundaries helped me regain control and prioritize what truly mattered. Another critical lesson was the importance of a strong support system. I couldn't have made it through this ordeal without the unwavering support of my friends and family. Don't be afraid to lean on the people who care about you. They can offer perspective, comfort, and practical help when you need it most. Finally, I've learned to focus on the future rather than dwelling on the past. It's easy to get caught up in what went wrong and what could have been. But moving forward means accepting what's happened and looking ahead to new possibilities. For me, that means being the best father I can be for Ellie and creating a stable, loving environment for her. As I move forward, I'm hopeful about the future. I've started to rebuild my life piece by piece. Ellie and I have settled into a new routine, and while it's not always easy, we're finding our way. I've also begun to explore new interests and hobbies, things that bring me joy and fulfillment. If there's one piece of advice I'd offer to anyone going through a similar experience, it's this: take it one day at a time. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and it's okay to have bad days. What matters is that you keep moving forward, even if it's just a small step each day.